Welcome to the Key Hire Small Business Podcast.
Owner, do you ever feel like time isn't your own? You're getting pulled in a million directions beyond being at work. You work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, you go home, but the work doesn't end. You have no balance. You can't have dinner with the family. You can't take that long weekend. Heck, you can't even take a Saturday off without getting a phone call because the world's ending and someone needs something from you. We're going to talk about that today. But first, I'd like to welcome you to the Key Hire Small Business Podcast, where we cover issues that help small business owners scale their business. I'm Corey Harlock, creator of Key Hire Solutions, where we help you grow with our talent, and I'll be your host today. Let's get into this. Our guest today, his name is Jordan Tait. A couple things to know about Jordan. He's traveled over 40 countries. Exploring new countries is one of his top priorities. He's coached hundreds of business how to grow from 6 to 7 figures through systems, strategy, and he believes that time freedom is not an expensive luxury that comes with retirement. He believes you can have it now. Let's welcome Jordan to the show. Hey, Jordan, how you doing?
Doing really well. Thanks for having me today.
Awesome. Now, I know you and Matt were talking a little bit about some of your travels before. You're making me hungry talking about Asian food and different destinations you've been in. What are some of the what would you say is your top 3 countries it's a horrible question, but what are the top 3 countries you've been to that you've enjoyed?
It's funny, it changes all the time, but what I usually tell people is one from each continent. So in Europe, I've spent the most time in Spain, and I love the culture there and the history. In Asia, it was Vietnam. There's just so much to explore top to bottom. It's like a different world in every little town and city you go. And then in South America, I'd say Colombia. The culture and the food and the energy for life is addictive there.
As you get older, does that list change for different reasons?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, now I'm in my 30s. The way I travel is different from when I was backpacking and hosteling. And what I look for in a destination is different. But
now that you have more means,
I truly love everywhere I go. There's always something to find.
Yeah, you have more means now, right? So you can enjoy it in a whole different way. But backpacking and hustling is not a bad way to explore a country.
It's great. You see a lot, you get to know the people, and it's definitely more affordable.
Yeah, very cool. So today we're talking about how to achieve work-life balance through boundaries and systems. So in your world and in your background, give us an overview. What do you mean by that?
So I've been coaching small business owners for 8 years. From all the way from day one when they're launching a new business through to tens of millions as well. And I just keep seeing the same problem hit small business owners where they start their business with this vision of, I'm going to have freedom. I'm going to work less hours than my corporate job. I'm going to spend more time with my family and go on more holidays. And they have all these beautiful visions for the lifestyle that the business is going to provide. But then they build the business and eventually it takes over all of those things. And they may have a really successful business, but they've given up too much of their life in exchange for getting there. Yeah. So where I've specialized is actually helping people either create the business to provide their life from day one, or when they find themselves lost in the grind, stuck working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, helping them systematize and strategize, how do I build a business that I can grow in 40 hours a week, that I can take a week vacation from without it breaking, but still hit big revenue numbers and earn the income that I deserve.
Are there any businesses in particular that you do this? Are these heavy businesses like manufacturing, or are these kind of more SaaS, or does this apply to any style of business?
I used to specialize in painting businesses because that's where I started my career. And then I expanded into home services and plumbers and trades. But what I've found is now I'm coaching marketing businesses, consultants, scrap metal businesses. The ultimate thing that I've learned is that the service of the business or what the business does doesn't actually change. It's more about how the owner manages themselves, their time, their team. So Yeah, right now, most of my clients are service business owners, marketers, bookkeepers, etc. But what I coach people with around time management and systems can be applied in any industry.
In my experience, I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are. People lose time or lose that work-life balance. I think the first two that jumped out at me are, number one, that old E-Myth thing, like I've been an electrician for someone else, and now I'm going to run my own business, and I'm going to be an electrician, but I'm going to do it on mine. But now there's no buffer, right? There's no one booking the jobs and assigning them. They're just doing it themselves. And the other side of that is they become a victim of their own success, meaning they've started a company and maybe they do have a proper organizational structure or the beginnings of an organizational structure. I always say, when you start a business, you hire your brother, you hire your brother-in-law, you hire your neighbor, you hire your neighbor's friends, and everyone does whatever they need to do to get the business off and running, because that's how you start a business, right? 9 times, unless you're going through funding or venture cap or whatever it is, but usually it's someone has an idea, they bootstrap it, they hire their people they know to do it. Then the business gets too big and they haven't built the processes or the procedures in, because, well, why would you do that when we're just trying to do what we can? And then the business grows bigger than the experience, the process, the procedure. Those are the kind of two that jump to my mind. Is there any other experiences that you can kind of think of that you've seen where that cause people to kind of get that work-life balance out of whack?
Yeah, you nailed it. I describe those as the two plateaus that most people hit on the way to $1 million. One is going from being the person doing it all to letting go and hiring your first person or two
Right.
for support. And a lot of people get stuck there. And then the second one is somewhere around 700,000-800,000 before you hit $1 million. The business is more and more complicated, but it's built on systems that were for a 6-figure business. So
yeah, I always say that, like, they're running a $10 million business on a $5 million process.
exactly. And so it's complicated because the business is always evolving and it requires you as the owner to constantly evolve with it.
Right.
And unless you do that work, which is hard work, you got to read the books, you got to go to the groups, the masterminds, do the work. You get stuck and the business gets blocked by you. You become the bottleneck.
You're the constraint.
Where people, like, you hit on it really well. Those are the two plateaus that I speak about as well. Why that happens for people is typically an inability to let go of control. That's a big challenge that a lot of people share with me is I don't trust other people to provide this service the way I can, or to answer the email the way I can, or to do the marketing the way I can. And that's valid, because no one will ever care about your business as much as you as the owner. But as long as you're the only person who can do something, you're always going to be the only person who can do something. So that's where people get stuck as the marketer, salesperson, recruiter, admin, customer service, and they're buried. They're trying to do 8 different roles and they only have 10% of their time each week to give to each of those roles. That's where those plateaus hit.
Yeah.
And that's why when people recognize that they've hit a plateau and they make some strategic changes, like hiring a new manager, putting in a new system to free up their time, their growth can just take off like crazy. I often see businesses double without the owner working more, because they finally let go and got out of their own way.
And do you find that if they take the time to define what it is they're missing, or is this part of the process you would take them through to say, I call it some roles, like, it's a horrible expression, but I say we're breaking our employees' necks sometimes. And sales and marketing is a real easy one. They say, hey, you're really good at sales, and I notice your social media is kind of popping here, so maybe you can do our marketing for us too. And so they're really good at sales and they're not so good at marketing, but you break their neck, right? Because the mindset of sales is a 180 from the mindset of marketing. And so you're asking them to spend half their time pointed this direction, then you're asking them to turn completely around and do the exact opposite work. And then you wonder, and both are going to suffer at that point, because you can't kind of move back and forth between those parts of your brain effortlessly. It takes time to power up. And so then they wonder, well, man, they used to be so good at sales, but now they're suffering. And our marketing's not nearly as good as they said it was going to be. And now you took a great employee and now you're disappointed in them and you're not getting the performance, right? So part of the thing we do with a lot of people is we take them through, defining exactly what that is. So when you put in an expert or a person with that exact experience in a role, you find it makes it easier for them to then say, oh, maybe you know this even better than I do, and I can trust. We talk a lot about trust on this podcast. Once you'll earn my trust quickly, where I can just say, you got it.
Yeah. So generally the first few hires you make, you want more generalists. You want people who can fill a bunch of different roles and can jump in and solve any problem with you, because there's only you and one or two or three other people.
Exactly.
Once your team starts to get up to 6 to 10 people, now you need to start to evolve into specialists, and you need management, and you need support. And when you get those specialists in and you go from getting decent marketing results because you were all just figuring it out to getting really good marketing results because you have a professional marketer in, then it opens up the ability to say, okay, now we need a better salesperson because our pipeline's going. Oh, now our pipeline is going. We're making tons of sales. Now we need more delivery because we're getting so many deals in. And this is like where you get on this growth trend. And that's how you start to scale, is you just solve what's the next bottleneck, what's the next problem I need to unlock.
Because businesses don't grow like this, right?
No.
You're always chasing. One side is always outperforming the other, if we break it down simply into sales and delivery, right?
Yes.
They don't just kind of, oh, look at everyone's happy and we're doing a great job. It's always like sales is crushing, and we got to bolster our delivery. Maybe we need to get some more another manager, or another supervisor, another specialist, and then all of a sudden, operations is like, okay, we have capacity here. Okay, well now we got to bolster our sales side, and it kind of grows one at a time versus together perfectly equally.
Exactly. And that's why it makes business so challenging, is you solve one problem and you think, this is great, I finally solved the big problem in my way. And then it just unlocks the next one. But what I like to do with clients is we solve for the stress. Where's the most acute pain and stress in the business? And it's either their time, or their client delivery is too slow, or they're not selling efficiently. And you just solve that first. What I really try to help people with as a coach, and especially on the topic of work-life balance and time management, is stop trying to actually do everything and solve everything all at once. That's what makes it overwhelming. That's what keeps you at your desk all day. Start strategically pinpointing, if I spend 10 hours this week and I solve this bottleneck or this capacity challenge or this efficiency thing, that will open up the most results. And I won't have to worry about all these other things, because that's where all the growth is going to come from.
Okay, very cool. So we go through this. Yeah, I'm sure you've worked with lots of people, and you've come in at different stages of the business, different stages of growth, different stages of stress, different stages of dysfunction, all those fun stages of being an entrepreneur and having your own business. So as people are trying to get back their time or claw back their version of, I think, well, let me ask you this. Does everyone have their own definition of work-life balance? Or is it like a blanket? We're talking everyone works 40 hours a week and has, or is everyone different and unique in the way they view work-life balance?
Yeah, there's a ton of criticism online right now around work-life balance as a concept, saying it's not possible, it's a bad pursuit, don't waste your time, it's a lie. And I see this all the time, and I laugh, because to me, work-life balance is an individual definition, and it does shift depending on your age, what you're doing with your family, what's going on in your business. There's a lot of varieties, but to me, work-life balance is the feeling that I have enough time to get the important work done in my business and to do the things that matter in my life outside of that. And that could be 40 hours a week, or it could be 60. I see some people, when they're literally working 100 hours a week, they have no life at all. And for them, getting to 70 hours a week would mean they had an extra 30 a week to live their life. That could be balance for them. So the concept is broad, and I think that's where it gets challenging. But the first thing I do with any new client is understand, what would a better work-life balance look like for you? How many days a week of work? What hours in a typical week? How many breaks do you need to take, and why? Because what happens really easily when you're struggling with work-life balance is you've made your business the number one priority every single day, all the time. So if you try to take time off and then another email comes in or there's another problem, you immediately go back to solving it. But for me, helping people, create more work-life balance is about first defining, what does that look like for you? And why is it important that you get more time to live your life? Why is it important that you spend more time with your family or spend a little more time taking care of your health than just
Right.
focusing on your business?
And so I thought, as you're speaking, and thank you for that, I thought of two kind of one example and one question. I read a quote years ago, and it was a woman who ran a luxury hotel chain up in Canada, where I'm from. And she said, work-life balance isn't always balanced. Sometimes you're going to work more. Sometimes you're going to have more time off. It's not this continuum of lock it in, set it and forget it type process and procedure. You might say, well, actually, Corey, we can lock it in, set it, forget it. And we'll talk about that. But the other side is, what is your opinion of or experience in people that, you said, I'm working 80 hours and I want to get down to 65. And sometimes people get addicted. The work and the routine and my theory is they get addicted to the chaos, not the delivery of the job, right? It's more about how hard I work versus the quality of the product or service I'm delivering. And if you can deliver the same product or service with half the work, and you can show them the path to that, sometimes they will reject it because you're making it too easy. And I can't tell my clients how hard we have to work to do this for them. Mm-hmm. Have you ever experienced that?
Absolutely. There is an addiction to work, and there's an addiction to the mindset that the more you work, the better your business will be. That the more hours you put in, the faster you'll grow. And what I try to help people break, and what I've broken in my own career, is that I actually believe I'm more productive and I get more done when I work the hours I choose. So I work 35 hours a week. I take off half days, Fridays, or even full days often. And I believe that because I have those boundaries, it forces me to choose what's the most important work I can be doing in my time, and not to just try to make up for it with 16-hour days, just pushing through a giant task list on things that don't actually move the needle. The second part is, I also think that once you get past 50, 60 hours a week, the quality of those hours of work is so low that your decision-making ability falls off, your energy and your ability to do good work is so much lower that the 60th or 70th hour of work in a week is like a quarter of the value of the first 10 hours of work you put into the week. So
just to jump on there, do you also find that's where kind of those conversations or feedback or blaming starts happening, when you're a little more exhausted and the email you send might be not as carefully worded, and the person reading it reads a different tone into it, and it kind of might manifest more problems in and around culture and people and communication than if you just said, I'm taking the weekend off, I'll respond to this on Monday, kind of deal.
Absolutely. We all know those scenarios where we felt like we're at the edge of our energy and our focus, and we get short, we make mistakes. I had a client recently admit to me, he said, the reason I want to work less is because I know that the way I'm working is actually detrimental to the way I'm leading. I'm not showing up as the leader I should be because I'm so short with my team and I'm not as focused as I need to be. And I'm setting a bad example for them. So he's doing the work to become a better leader and to pull back on how much he's working, because he realizes it's costing him the quality in his business that he strives for. So Look, there's so many reasons this happens. There's the constant financial pressure, and as a business grows, just you're trying to get more done in the same amount of time, and so it's an impossible thing to do. And that's where it does take a lot of unraveling to understand what's the mindset that's keeping you stuck working 70, 80 hours a week.
Right.
What's the driver for you that's that you're pushing you to never take the time off when you need it or deserve it.
And I think you touched on something that we're really big on is, small business owners are, for the most part, we always want to recognize that these are, you got to be pretty courageous to start your own business and then take on the responsibility to make sure you're taking care of your employees and their families by making sure there's money in the bank account to process payroll on time and not have to go to anyone and say we can't. There a lot of business owners wear that like a badge of honor, and I wonder if sometimes that's not driving like it. I believe most of them are pushing themselves to the edge because they believe they have to, for whatever, because they do carry that burden of people are relying on me. And that's super noble. And it's hard to say, whoa, you need to scale back. I know those people are relying on you, and to make that justification and be able to flip that switch, because that's a big responsibility. And I'm sure they're saying, well, I've been working this long, this many hours for this long. And because I'm doing that, I've been able to meet my responsibility as it connects to taking care of my employees and their families, right? And if I don't work that much, what if the business slips? What if we miss something? Because I won't be there all the time overseeing everything. And have you experienced, and I don't have your experience, kind of what you're talking about. I have some, right? I have my experiences, but curious to know if that is one of those mental hurdles that you have to kind of get people over.
It is. It's a huge part of it's the blessing and the burden of owning a business, is that responsibility that you feel for yourself and others and your clients and your family.
Right.
And what I think makes this such a deep, complex issue for most owners to solve is that you're pulled in 8 directions every day. Your employee needs your attention. Your clients need your attention. Your family wants your attention. You leave nothing for yourself. So I don't blame people at all for ending up in this. I was a CEO for a while and a management consultant in a business, and I felt that same responsibility of, if I get a call at 7 or 8 p.m. on the night, I can't ignore it. It's an employee calling. It's probably important. The problem is this way of working only works for so long.
Right.
And you get used to it, you get comfortable in it, and you get into that grind, and it creates results. But what I've seen from my experience, again, with hundreds of owners and people at all levels, is that once you start to hit a wall and your growth slows and you just aren't letting go of as much as you could, you're the bottleneck, and nothing is going to change until you do. And the problem is it leads to burnout. It leads to failure. I've seen dozens of businesses close, not because it wasn't a viable business or profitable, but because the owner pushed themselves to a point where it wasn't healthy for them to continue.
Right.
Where their doctors are saying, you're too stressed. If you keep working like this, you're going to have a heart attack. Where their families are saying, we never see you. And yes, you're providing a lifestyle for us, but the fact that you're never home or you're never present is not worth what you're doing. And so that's the problem I'm trying to help people solve. It's acute pain right now when you're grinding. It's a hard place to be, but it's really about preventing the cliff that can be a year or 2 or 3 down the road. And so the question I always ask people is, how much longer could you keep working the same way you're working? How many years? And if that runway isn't more than 3 years, then something needs to change, or you're just heading towards a difficult place.
That's a good distinction. So, do you think that it's necessary might be the wrong word, but do you think for the work you do or to grow a business, right? A business owner has to push themselves to the brink before you can bring them back? Or can you start with this mindset and say, this is how I'm going to do this?
It's a great question. I see people on both ends. So some of my clients come to me where they're at that breaking point and they say, if I don't change the way I'm working in the very short term, I'm going to break down, and this is all that hard work is going to go for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a person I love to help because I really want to get them back into a sustainable way of working
Right.
where they can see a better path forwards. But it's also a difficult path because they're already at their wits' end. They're already burning out. They're already exhausted.
Critical,
So
right? Like
now we got to do some really good damage control right away, which my first goal with them is, let's get you back 15 or 20 hours a week from your work so you can start to slow down a bit and recharge. And then we can start to make better decisions about how you grow. In the second example, a lot of people also come to me when they're actually only working 30, 40, 50 hours a week, but they're saying, I'm not grinding right now, but I can see the path ahead of me and I don't want to go that way. I'm not willing to trade the extra 10, 20 hours a week for more money because I like my life. I like the time I have, and I like that balance. So with those people, it's much more about, let's understand the business model you're growing right now. And I just ask questions like, if you immediately got 5 more clients tomorrow, what would happen to your time and what would happen to your business? Would it continue to roll efficiently or would it break? And we start to problem solve before these things become bigger issues. And we look at, maybe you need to hire support more strategically a little bit sooner than you thought. Or maybe you need to introduce a new system that's going to free up a few hours a week. And now that you actually got capacity to keep growing. So I like helping people on both sides, but it's much easier when someone is proactive about solving these problems versus being reactive later, because you get really deep in those habits and the routine of, if I'm not working 16 hours a day, if I'm not working 10 hours a day, what else am I doing? And how do I stop worrying about my business all the time?
What am I going to do with all that free time?
It's a good question. And honestly, it's a surprising part of helping people work less, is convincing them that the value of your life, and this is a big part of my philosophy, the value of your time in your life is way higher than what you think, way higher than the dollars that you're earning in the business, because you can always earn more money, you can always grow the business, but you will never get back today. You won't get back this time. Right. And the longer you wait to solve these problems, the more time you've traded. So I really like to help people see that and recognize. I'll give you an example of a client recently. So she was working 85 hours a week. She had 2 businesses she was growing. And when she started talking to me, she said, look, I haven't taken a day off in 6 to 8 months. I haven't taken a vacation in years, and I'm struggling. And my partner, he's pretty upset at me. He's saying, what's the point of this relationship if we're never together?
Right.
So I said, why are you working so hard? What's driving this? And for her, it was, I want to make enough money that I can then afford to take a vacation with my partner and spend more time with him and his family. And what I helped her see was that by working the way you're working, you're actually not letting yourself take the thing that you want. Right. The vacation you want, you could take now. You could choose to take it now. Right. If you break that mindset that you only can get freedom and time by earning more money.
Right.
And so she had a big breakthrough. She let go of pushing so hard. She changed her business, hired support, and then took a 3-week vacation with her partner within the next 2 months. And now her philosophy of growing her business is, how can I let go of more control so I can keep taking those vacations, and they're available to me now instead of 5 years in the future when I've saved more money.
So my previous life was hospitality, and I used to do food and beverage for hotels. And one of the interesting concepts is, when you look at a hotel with a restaurant in it, or a banquet facility, or whatever it is, in terms of revenue streams, what is the most perishable revenue stream in that hotel? And everyone always says, well, it's food because it goes rotten. And the answer is it's the room nights. Because if I don't rent a room tonight, I cannot rent that room twice tomorrow. The most perishable part of that operation is not putting people in the beds in the rooms, because I can't rent them for twice as much tomorrow to recapture that revenue. And essentially, that's what I'm hearing you say about time. It's like it's perishable. You lose today, you can't jam those hours into tomorrow and say, well, I'll make up that extra time tomorrow. Like the clock is ticking and it's passing us by.
It is, and we don't think about it that often because we always feel like there's more time. And the most common, I think one of the most common feelings I hear from people is, yeah, I'm just going to grind it out for 5 more years, get my business to a place, then I'll slow down, and then I'll let myself enjoy my life more. My problem with that is I've seen people at the 10 million mark, 30 million, 50 million mark, and most people don't let themselves slow down. They get stuck in building that way and they hit their mark and then they say, well, actually, I'm going to hit 10 million now and then I'll let myself slow down. So they don't ever let themselves off. And then they're 65, 70, it's time to retire, but they missed the majority of their life in working to the future. So I call it outsourcing our happiness to the future. It's this idea that I can't enjoy today because I have to work harder so that I can enjoy some hopeful future date. And my whole thing is that's not guaranteed.
Right.
You never know what's going to change or happen, but you can enjoy today if you carve out the time to do it. And it's different. Like we talked about, work-life balance is different for everyone. For me, I truly believe if I work hard 8 hours a day, I deserve the other 8 hours that I'm not sleeping to enjoy my life. And that feels like balance to me. For other people, even just a few extra hours of freedom every week changes the quality of their life. If they're spending it on things that they care about, if they're actually going out and exercising or enjoying nature or spending it with their family. And when you have a better life and you feel more energized, you do better work. And so this is, to me, this really positive feedback loop.
It's so funny because it's so commonsensical, but I mean, raise your hand if you've missed it, right? We've all done it. Like we consistently move the goal line. Well, if I can just get here, oh, I got there. Let's push it. And then when you're pushing yourself you're doing that for 10 years. By the time you get ready to enjoy life, you got high blood pressure, you got bad cholesterol, you maybe are stressed out, you're in therapy. I don't know what it is. You got physical ailments and you can't do what you want to do. And we think we're invincible. And just, I want to go back to something you said before, because I think it's really important, because I don't want business owners to hear us saying you're doing it all wrong. Like,
yes,
everyone's path is their path, right? And I'm a believer, and like, when you start a business, you got to grind. Sometimes you just got to grind, right? Especially if you're bootstrapping and you're doing whatever you do, and you have commitments and you have a family. And I think what I would hope for people to understand is there's going to come a tipping point where you need help. You either need to come to that realization, and hopefully, or you get help. And hopefully that help isn't your significant other saying this stops or else, right? And maybe that is that rock bottom or that event that needs to happen, but you don't need that to happen, right? There's guys like you out there who can say, let's just have a conversation, and maybe we can preempt that, because we don't want you to have to go through that kind of suffering, or lose a relationship or a friendship, or an amazing employee that used to be your friend that you hired, and now that friendship is going to be destroyed, or your health, or, insert bad stuff here. It doesn't have to happen for you to make the change. But also I understand that you got to go through that progression where you got to work hard, but you can't get into the habit where you love the chaos more than the business and the job and the relationships and the delivery.
Mm-hmm. It's a very important point. I want to reiterate it. I'm not calling people out and
I don't think you are, but I just am always really careful, because
totally.
I never want these courageous and hardworking people that have put their
Yes.
money and wealth on the line to feel like I'm ever sitting here saying, you're really screwing this up, you're doing it wrong. Like, we get it. It's hard work, and we're trying to do it all from help. And I'm not saying that's you. I'm kind of putting that more on me.
Yeah. Well, let me share where this passion for me really came from, because
that'd be great.
I can coach people to double their business and to grow big profits and all that. But what I saw through coaching hundreds of people was too many great people put in 3 to 5 years of grinding to get that business off the ground, get it to a level, and have a successful business in place, and then literally close it because they hated it. They resented it because it had taken so much from them to get there. And those people could have taken it a little slower, or they could have taken a different path and saved the business and gone on to bigger things. But that's a really painful experience, and it's not really talked about a lot. You don't see it in social media. It's a hidden part of business, but 4 out of 5 small businesses close in their first 5 years.
Right.
And that's a really scary statistic. And it's because of the pressure, the stress, the guilt, the anxiety that owners carry alone. And the second piece, so helping people avoid that is really important to me. Second piece is, I got there myself. I got to full burnout, to the point where I had to stop doing what I was doing and quit a job that I loved and was really good at, because I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I couldn't even show up for work anymore. I was just so done. I had insomnia. I was literally just barely a functional person in business and in life. And I had to quit and take off months to get myself back into a place where I could then show up at my best in work and life.
Right.
And so for me, it was a commitment of, I'm never going to let that happen to me again. But then bigger than that, I want to help other people avoid it, because it's so detrimental to your health, to your family and your social relationships, and to your enjoyment of life, when the business ends up consuming and taking all those things that are important to you. And it's not a choice people make really aware in the early days. It's, you're working a normal 8-hour day, and then there's something that takes your focus and you need an extra hour. So you work an extra hour, then you work through a Saturday morning. And then suddenly a few years later, you wake up and you're working 7 days a week, and you truly haven't taken a real vacation in years. And at that point, you're like, how did I get here? And how do I continue to grow the business while pulling back? And that's the question that a lot of people come to me with is, can I actually keep growing? Can I earn more money? Can I grow more revenue while at the same time pulling back? Is that possible? And the answer is totally, absolutely yes. My goal is help people get back 10 or 20 hours a week while making an extra 10K income. Because at that point, when you realize you can actually grow and work less, then it becomes addictive, and people go the opposite way, and they start to say, okay, what else can I systematize? Who else can I hire? How else can I do this? You start to get yourself free from that trap that you've built.
So what I think I heard you say was, this kind of work taking on more is almost like compounding interest, right? You kind of add it, and then it becomes part of your baseline, and then you add something new, and we have a new baseline. I have to do all this, but now I have to add something else to my list of stuff to do, right? And the other thing I think I heard you say, and you didn't, these aren't your words, I'm going to paraphrase. I'm going to tell you what I think I heard you thought you said, which was, people put their blood, sweat, and tears into their business, and we get this compounding kind of responsibility that happens. I'm going to trademark compounding responsibility.
I like it.
And I'm still stealing it from you. And the scenario I saw playing out in my head was, a business owner and their partner get into a conflict, an argument, and the business owner says, well, I'm doing this for you. And the partner says, that's not what I want. What I want is more time with you. I want to go on a vacation with you. I want you to work less. So what you think you're doing for me is something I don't even really want. Like, I wish we didn't have to do this, And so that's kind of what I was seeing in my mind's eye as you were talking about kind of this taking on more and missing out and doing all that.
Yeah, it comes from the right place. It's the right intention. It's I want to provide, I want to be there, I want to take care, I want to be the responsible one. But yeah, there's this tipping point, and when you start to realize that I'm doing this to provide for my family, but I'm not spending time with my family, it's
Yeah,
such a weird
my
trade.
family doesn't want all the stuff I'm providing. They just want my time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very common story. You hear a lot,
Mhm.
and yet it's easy to fall into that trap. And so I love what you said, the idea of compounding interest on your work. It's
We'll
because,
share the trademark on it so we can
okay,
both use it.
so the reason that happens is because at first, every hour you put into your business creates a big return because your business is limited. It doesn't have a lot of capacity. So you just keep putting in hours and hours and it keeps growing. So you're like, great. Every time I put in an hour, the business grows. Eventually you hit your personal capacity. And
Mhm.
most people, their growth stalls or it slows and they can't figure out what's going on. So they use the thing that was working for them before. They're like, well, then I have to work harder.
Fine.
The problem is your time is at that point so stretched and the value of every hour you're putting in is different. And so what I try to coach people on is, as an owner at every stage of growth, the value of your time is more and more expensive. So when you're brand new, an hour of your time is worth $25 an hour, maybe $50 an hour. When you're at $1 million, your time is worth $100, $200 an hour. And as you get bigger and bigger, every hour you invest, you have to really start to look at it. How much am I getting for this hour? If I spend an hour doing something that I could pay someone else $25 or $50 an hour to do, then that's a better trade than me doing it myself.
Right. Yeah.
That's a part of breaking free, is recognizing your time is the most limited resource in your business. And it's literally impossible to go from 500,000 to 1 million while doing the exact same things with your time.
That's great. That resonated. That was a great explanation. So I think we pointed out tons of problems that business owners might say, "Yep, guilty, guilty, guilty," and we've been careful to let them know, like, we get it, we understand, but now let's give them some help, right?
Yeah.
So if someone's listening and they say, "Man, a lot of what Jordan's saying is resonating with me," or maybe I'm becoming a workaholic, or maybe I'm missing the point, or maybe I want to lick this before it becomes a problem, right? What, other than calling you, and we'll get your info up here in a minute, but other than calling you, what are the kind of top one, two, three things that you could, pieces of advice you could give them that they might take back to their business or take home tonight and say, I want to make a change. How can I do this?
So this is what I love to talk about, is how do you fix the pain and the problem. So first is, think about, why did I start this business in the first place? What lifestyle was I dreaming about? And what lifestyle am I trying to provide by working so hard? And when you remember what's important to you and you start to get clear on, oh yeah, I wanted to be able to take Fridays off to spend with my family, or I wanted to be able to go on a vacation every 6 months, or whatever your why is, remembering that and then asking yourself, is the way I'm currently working actually getting me on the path to providing that, or is it taking me further away? That's a first step in starting to break through the mindset of the only way to get what I want is to work harder and to make more money. The second piece is the exercise I shared around figuring out, what's my time worth per hour right now, and then what would I like it to be worth. So this is an exercise I do in most of my first calls with people, is how much money are you making in a month right now? And how many hours are you working each month to earn that money? So I'll share an example. My typical client, when they come in, they're working 60, 70 hours a week, which is like 240 plus hours a month. And they're making like 8,000, 10,000 a month. When we do the math, their time is currently worth $50 an hour based on that math.
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
reasonable, but you can easily go get a job that pays you more than that. The second exercise is, what would you like to be earning per month? What would your ideal income be? And then how many hours would you like to be working to earn that income? Usually the income goes higher, the hours worked goes lower.
Sure.
And suddenly we get to, oh, I want my time to be worth $100, $150, $200 an hour. This is a really important exercise, because then you look at your calendar and you look at all the commitments you have, all the tasks you're doing, and you say, what's the value of this task? If I spend an hour on email, is that worth $100 an hour, or is that worth $25 an hour? And
Right.
anything that's worth less than your ideal hourly income is something to systematize, outsource, or solve, or delete. Because often, where, like we talked about earlier, people are just using the strategy of, I'll grow by working more hours.
Right.
This is about growing by working smarter in the hours that you have. And so when you realize that if I spend an hour on business development, marketing, and sales, that could be worth $1,000, $2,000 an hour if I close a big deal. Or if I'm hiring or managing someone, that could be really valuable time. You start to make better decisions with how you're investing your limited time. So those are two starting points. And then the third one is, I always ask people, what's the most frustrating, time-consuming, difficult work that you do in a week? And it's typically admin, bookkeeping, marketing support. It's the stuff that you didn't start your business to do that work, but it's on your plate because you're the owner. And how can we problem solve getting that off your plate as fast as possible? So my goal is we remove the draining, time-consuming, low-value tasks, which is typically where we get the fastest return. We get the 10 to 15 hours back a week, where someone is running $1 million business, but it turns out that they're driving around 6 hours a week delivering tools to their job sites, or crazy things like that people just do, and then they don't recognize, oh, there's probably a better way. And then what we try to do is, you get that time back, and then let's put it into the thing that you are best at or enjoy doing the most, that creates infinitely more value. And that's where you start to get higher productivity, higher profit, and people can legitimately grow a business while working less.
So I love that all three of those are amazing. I love the just, I can imagine the visual of figuring out what you're valuing yourself at today, and what that you perceive value is, and how to do that. I think it's amazing. The other side of that was, you said admin tasks, right? And I picture, myself like sitting there, like doing Excel work or something. And I'm like, I suck at Excel. And it takes me twice as long to do it as someone who knows how to use Excel. And it frustrates me. It puts me in a bad mood. I get tense. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that stuff. And so outsourcing it to someone who would like, okay, what else you want done? I'm like, how, so I think that's those tasks. There certainly are, those tasks that break your neck and just kind of turn you in a direction and take you away from the things you want to be doing. And you force yourself to, eat the frog and do that shitty work, but you don't have to. There's so many resources out there that can help you. So I think that super, super valuable stuff. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm glad that landed for you. It's
totally, yeah.
Also really, it's freeing. It's liberating when you let go of the stuff that you hate doing. And as you hit on, if you're not good at it and you hate doing it, and it takes you twice as long to do as the thing that you're really good at, it's a terrible investment of your time. Just like it would be a terrible investment of your money if you were paying someone a lot of money to do something worse than someone else could do it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's awesome. So Jordan, thank you. This has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. And I think this is probably one of our longest recordings because the information's been good. So thank you for hanging in there with us. But there's got to be some people out there thinking, I'd love to talk to this guy and pick his brain more, or see what he's all about. So if someone listening wants to learn more about what you do or reach out to you, how can we get in touch with you?
The two best places would be my website, which is www.theintentionalbusiness.ca. And there you can find out more about my background and the services. But I'm also on LinkedIn, and you can find me. You can search Jordan Tait, and I post content on there 3 or 4 days a week. And I've got my link to book.
Awesome. Is there a typo? Is it?
No, it's Jordan Tait.
Okay.
My name is Jordan, but the link is Jordy. It's a
Got it.
whole
Okay,
but,
cool. I just want to make sure Matt didn't fall asleep at the wheel. And one thing we never talked about is we're both Canadian. You're still in Vancouver right now, which is we're going to be out in Vancouver this Thanksgiving to visit my folks. So I'm super excited.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I live in Vancouver. I have a lot of local clients, but I'm also serving people across North America. And so I'd love, wherever your clients or your listeners are from, love to chat. What I do is I provide a free hour of coaching where
Awesome.
my goal is in that hour, help you diagnose what's causing you to work longer and harder than you want to be, and what are a couple simple solutions. So I'm always looking for 2 to 3 growth levers or simple strategies that will free you up. And whether you choose to work with me or not after that, that's fine. I'm not a pushy sales guy, but I do try to provide at least a couple steps they can go take on their own.
So we'll get that link in the liner notes once we get all this posted up and everything. But the other thing is, I mean, you're Canadian, so they know you're just going to be a nice guy to work with.
Yeah, exactly. And I really, truly just want to help people break free from the grind.
We're the same, man. We're help first. We always just want to chat to you and see how we can help you. And if you like what we have to say, we'll work together. But hey, I want to thank you for your time. I got to let you go. You're an hour behind. You probably got stuff to do. I don't want to overwork you today, Jordan. So thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you checking in with us and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you so much. I really hope it helps some people out there and that it gives them some steps to break through.
I think it definitely did. Thanks so much for your time. All right, there we go. Mr. Jordan Tait, thanks for being on the show, and thanks for tuning into the Key Hire Small Business Podcast. If you got value out of today's episode, want to keep up to date on our new content, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you prefer to listen to your podcast, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, whatever your favorite platform is, by searching Key Hire Small Business Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about working with Key Hire and how we can help your small business, you can schedule a meeting with us, become our next success story, where we are a help-first organization. So we guarantee there's no sales, no weirdness, just help. Thanks for listening. I'm Corey Harlock, and until next time, stop grinding, start growing.